Hello, everyone. It's Pastor Jeremy. I've been thinking a lot about the book of Genesis lately because of the sermon series we're doing, and there's this part right at the beginning. In fact, it's in the second verse of Genesis that has really been speaking to me. It says, starting in verse 1, Genesis 1:1, in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. And then it says, now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep. And the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. So that idea is, there's so much just in those two verses. We start with the Spirit of God. In Hebrew is a language with a lot of idioms. It's a visual language. Instead of anger, like we have in English, they use burn in the nostrils, right? So in the Hebrew it'll say like burn in the nostrils, but in English the translation will be angry. Spirit is another one of those things. Spirit is the word ruach, and it literally means breath. And when you think about it, I think that's a helpful metaphor for us, because our spirit is the most intimate part. It's like our breath, right? Our breath goes into our body. It gives our body life. And when we stop breathing, our body can't be alive anymore. The spirit is, our breath is the most intimate part of who we are. It's the thing that's closest to us and deepest within us. And that's the idea with the word spirit. It's the most intimate thing that somebody has. It's the thing that is deepest within them. It's the thing that gives them life. And so when we talk about the Spirit of God, the Ruach Elohim is what it says here in the Hebrew, it really is implying the deepest part, the most powerful part of God. But it says something specific about the Ruach Elohim. It says that the Spirit of God is hovering over the waters. So the Hebrew people, actually all of the ancient Near Eastern people, had a specific idea of how the world was. The world was flat, which we all know is still true, right? I'm just kidding. How is that still a thing? Whatever. So, but they said that the earth was flat, and the earth was sitting on top of something they called the deep. The deep was full of water, and water in the ancient world was a scary, powerful thing, right? They built their houses out of mud bricks. They didn't have kilns to fire it. So when a flood happened, they would say actually that the waters from the deep erupted from the ground or came up to the surface. But when a flood happened, it wasn't just that the water knocked things down, because their bricks were not kiln fired. The water would turn those bricks back into mud, and you would go to a town that had buildings, and after the flood, there wouldn't be buildings, there wouldn't be knocked down rubble, there would just be mud, like someone had pressed reset. So they had this understanding of the deep, the waters underneath the earth, the things that caused floods and storms and all of that stuff. That was this symbol of chaos and evil and things being completely out of control and out of human control, and you get the picture. And it says that the Spirit of God was hovering over them. It's almost as if the Spirit of God was holding back the deep. I mean, indeed, it is only the Spirit of God that has the ability to hold back the deep, the chaos, the ultimate evil that seems to be out of human control. That's been my prayer. As we are in a season that it feels like the deep is starting to seep up, the chaos is starting to come back, that the Spirit of God would hover over our planet and over me, that I wouldn't get caught up in the fear of the deep. I would rest in the knowledge that God has the power to calm the deep in the world, and maybe, and sometimes more importantly, to calm the deep within me. The mystics will talk about this idea of the connection between the spirit and breath. And they will talk about how sometimes all we need to do is breathe, center ourselves on God, to allow ourselves to let go of the chaos, to really center ourselves on our own Ruach, so that we can be aware of the Ruach of God that is within each of us. May that be your place today.